This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hi there, and welcome to episode 253 of the CineSnob Podcast. I'm Gerard Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Hi, Cody. How's it going?
It's going well. I realize I have a stool here because I was on my arcade earlier today.
Your
So-
Legends Ultimate arcade, right?
Yeah. It's really fun. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. It was my Christmas present to myself.
Mine, so you can see there's a Simpsons cabinet. That's NBA Jam. That's Star Wars. Across the room behind the shelf are Ninja Turtles and a Marvel Comics one. There's a pinball machine you can't see here. I do have that Arcade Legends literally right behind this shelf, waiting to be placed in the living room. Because my wife wants it for or Legends Ultimate Arcade, I should say. My wife wants it for when company comes over.
Yeah,
because
I think they make like a 4-person controller thing too now that you can attach to it.
I haven't seen that. The Simpsons and Ninja Turtles, the arcade one up, they're a little smaller, but they're 4-player. Like they have the 4 controllers.
Yeah, you can get a quad play for the Legends Ultimate, I believe, here.
That is interesting because like that's where all the brains are in the control panel there.
Mm-hmm.
I had the one that I have was like the control panel went bad and they replaced it for me because that's where like all the guts are. Like everything else, like it's just the screen and the control panel, and then everything else is literally just the cabinet that holds it up.
Yeah.
How are you enjoying it?
It's great. I mean, I've been, some modifications were made. And so I've been playing 2 things in particular. I've been playing a ton of NBA Jam Tournament Edition.
Mm-hmm. That's what this is, a dedicated NBA Jam Tournament Edition cabinet.
Yeah,
yes.
I've been enjoying that. And then I've been playing this thing called World Class Bowling, which is a bowling game that you use with the trackball.
Yes, I've played that before.
Yeah, super addicting, that one. And then like I played The Simpsons a little bit earlier today too, so that was fun. You know,
some of the pack-in games for that Legends Ultimate, I believe there's a Fix-It Felix,
I played that,
which is great. There's also, I believe, all the Super Star Wars games, which you're probably a little young for Super Nintendo, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Because those were some of my favorite Super Nintendo games. Super Star Wars, Super Empire Strikes Back, and Super Return of the Jedi. Kind of the last gasp of like side-scrolling, like beat-em-up Star Wars games. Like they don't make them like that anymore. And it was great that it came like packed with that. I wish I could see it. There's like other games listed on the front. But I too have made some.
Like 2 Disney, Aladdin and
Aladdin and Lion King. Those actually I haven't played Aladdin much, but that Lion King game is great.
Oh really?
Yeah,
I need to check it out.
I believe I can't remember. There was a Genesis version and a Super Nintendo version. I believe it's the Genesis version on arcade, the Legends Ultimate. I could be wrong. It's slightly different.
I had now that you say that, I think I may have had Aladdin on Genesis when I was a kid, if I remember correctly. But there's also Asteroids, Millipede, Space Invaders, Burger Time, Centipede, Tetris.
So Burger Time, I love the arcade 1-ups as well. The arcade 1-ups are a little more kind of faithful recreations. I mean, to an extent. I think they're like 3/4 size.
They're smaller, yeah.
There was a Burger Time released for arcade 1-up that's fairly rare. I think there was only like 3,000 of them made. And every now and then I'm in this arcade 1-up group on Facebook, and every now and then one will come up for sale for like a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, I haven't played Burger Time yet.
I played it years ago. I don't remember it. I think I recommended some games for you. Did you ever play the Superman one I talked about?
I haven't tried that one yet, because I usually get stuck on, because for a while I could not win a game of NBA Jam, in that I just couldn't get past it and win, and then finally I'm at a point where I can win relatively regularly, and then sometimes I just like, I want to play Frogger for a minute, and then I just kind of go to Frogger. But yeah,
let me tell you, just for sheer like just start playing something, nothing beats the pinball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know why. I mean, I love these other games too, but like when I sit down to play The Sims, like I guess probably because I don't really know. Like, I've never felt like there's a strategy to pinball.
Yeah.
Like, you just hit it and it might go where you want it to and it might not. Like if I sit down and play The Simpsons or Ninja Turtles or NBA Jam, like I've got to finish or I've got to get as far as I can until I get tired. Like NBA Jam, I got to play a full game. Last time I played NBA Jam, I lost to the fucking Mavericks because the Spurs always play the Mavericks first. But I lost on a 3-point, like at the buzzer. Hate that shit.
Yeah, those are brutal.
Yeah, but pinball. I don't know if you have pinball games on there. Those are the easiest to me to just sit down and start playing.
Yeah.
I don't know. My wife came in and started playing. I set her up some pinball games. I downloaded some. You can buy with the modification. You can buy pinball games from Google, and I put Bob's Burgers on there. She loves Bob's Burgers.
Oh, nice.
So.
That's cool.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I need to get this room clean because we've been remodeling, so there's a bunch of crap in here. But once I can get it all cleared out, it'll be fun, and I'll turn them all on. And the Star Wars one is a personal favorite. It's not a great game. Well, I take that back. It's an old game. I don't know if you've ever played it. My first time I ever saw it was at the old Bandera 6 movie theater, which I don't think you were probably old enough to remember.
No.
It's literally it turned into something called the Cinema Bill. You know where Henry's Puffy Taco is in San Antonio?
Yeah,
It's literally right behind there. It was
Oh.
a movie theater, and that's where me and my sister and any of my friends would go. Like, our parents would drop us off there, and we'd wait in line. Like, I waited in line around the building to see The Lion King. And they had, for some reason, they had that arcade game there. And it's a vector-based game, so it's really primitive. But man, is it cool. Like, it has sound clips in it, and that one has the actual, like, flight yoke.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah, my arcade stuff, we're going to get hyper local here, is that my mom has like a childhood friend, and they own Diversion's game room.
Oh,
here.
Really?
And so growing up, I used to have all my birthday parties at Diversion's because, we got hooked up with it. And so I spent a lot of time there as a kid. Yeah.
Let me tell you something lame. My parents did not allow me to go to Diversion's because they thought it was a hangout for ruffians. I mean, I still went, of course.
Sure.
But they would I don't want you going there. There was literally one at the end of the street that I grew up on.
Oh, okay.
There in Leon Valley, right by Bandera Bowl. Bandera Bowl is where I got most of my arcade jollies in. Spent a lot of time there. But yeah, Diversions, I remember had this is one, maybe it's already on the stuff I downloaded. There was a game called Painted Lady. Have you ever heard of Painted Lady?
No.
And it was, I can't remember the gameplay of it, but the objective, and it was, I guess it's similar to like the shit you find on those barcades. But the premise of it was to uncover a picture of a naked lady.
Oh.
Well,
no wonder your parents didn't want you going. That's filth.
Well, they didn't know about that. They were worried about the clientele, which was just all my friends. It's like,
right.
Who gave a shit? But yeah, that was one of the games that was there. The barcade, I assume that Painted Lady or some variant of it lives on in the barcades that my friends were always really good at that I hated playing.
I got to check and see if I've got it on my machine.
If you do, play it, and remember how giddy you would have felt or think about how giddy you would have felt in 1992 to see that. Not you particularly, because you were a child, but
right.
Know, as a adolescent,
old, yeah,
as a 13-year-old, like, woo, this is these were the this is what we dealt with pre-internet. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I remember you told me you were making the splurge, and it's definitely one of those things that you can get overwhelmed with if you're doing retro gaming, because you'll be like, I'm just going to play, like you said, like, I feel like playing Frogger for 5 minutes. and then you're like, I'm gonna move on to something else.
That's how it's been some of the time, but I mean I've been getting quality NBA Jam time in, which to me has not gotten old yet. So
I love that game. Are you playing the arcade version or is it the console version? Do you have any idea?
It's the arcade version.
Okay, I remember fondly buying the NBA Jam Tournament Edition, much to my parents' chagrin because I already had the original one, and then here's a new one, but it came with a poster that I wish I still had, and I could probably track it down on eBay fairly quickly, but it came with a poster of all the codes you could enter to do like the crazy heads.
I remember that.
Like one of them was a Phoenix Suns gorilla, and for some reason all three Beastie Boys were in there too. I wish I could remember what else was in there.
It is weird playing sort of like the version that I have because it gets a little wonky sometimes and just like randomly spurts out the wrong player's name who's on a different team.
Weird.
While it's playing, it's super strange. But
I believe I know it doesn't have Michael Jordan. I believe also Reggie Miller is not included. And
I believe that's true.
And I think I remember reading something. Let me see if I can look this up. I remember reading something that Reggie Miller, somebody asked like Reggie Miller recently, and he was like, I don't give a shit, put me in the game, something like that. But like he wasn't in the game. I think Charles Barkley is not in there either. I don't know. The guys
Barkley
that were
had
like
his own game, right?
I think
because this the machine comes loaded with like if you subscribe, it comes with some Charles Barkley game.
Probably. I just remember Jordan wasn't in it.
It was Barkley, Shut Up, and Jam.
Oh yes. I don't think there was. I think Penny Hardaway was not in it. Let's see. There's a list of. Okay.
At least on one of them, because there's on Jam and in Tournament Edition, there's two rosters. So.
Oh, so okay. So this says this is the arcade 1-up version. So you have a different version. But like NBA Jam does not have Benoit Benjamin on the arcade 1-up version. Brad Lowhouse, Mike Luciano, I don't even know who that is.
Massive losses so far.
Reggie Miller or Wayman Tisdale. Again, like I don't recognize anybody, but I recognize everybody at Mike Luciano. I don't even know how to say that.
Yeah.
The Benoit Benjamin again is not in Tournament Edition. I don't know. It's strange how that worked back then. I remember I was talking to somebody the other day, just licensing wise, how that changes, how it changes things, or you at least used to. There was a very popular set of Marvel trading cards when I was in 6th grade that kind of sparked that whole comic book resurgence in the early 90s. And DC Comics copied it, and they released a trading card set with all of their characters except Batman. Because Batman was licensed to a different trading card company. So you got arguably like white hot Batman in the early 90s, and you can't put him in your trading card set.
Damn.
Licensing sucked back then. At least back then. Maybe not now. Anyway, we've talked enough about arcades, I think. Is there anything else you want to add before we move on, Cody?
No, I think we've covered arcades on our movie podcast enough.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Have you plugged it in to use it as a monitor for anything else yet?
Yes.
Okay.
I've used it for like for other like emulators.
Okay.
Because I have like an NVIDIA Shield with a controller, and I have tried that. And it actually works a lot better. Like I've done emulators on my big TV, and it's kind of weird. But when you put it on like this small TV where you're right in front of it, it feels like it's more in the spirit of
that's like the Nintendo classics that were released a few years ago. They have a setting where you can add scan lines.
Oh,
so it looks like you're on a CRT.
That's kind of cool.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to reviews.
Here are this week's reviews.
First up, we have Skinamarink.
In this house. in this house. In this house. In this house. In this house.
Speaking of the 90s and cathode ray tubes and scan lines, Skinamarink. Cody, this is a viral horror movie.
Yeah.
Viral, I think, because of a leak.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's getting a lot of buzz on Twitter, I've seen over the weekend. Cody, tell us about Skinamarink and what you thought of it.
Yeah, so I got to see Skinamarink this past weekend at Alamo Draft House from our friends at Fonz PR, and you know, I had been hearing about this movie for quite some time. You know, it's a movie that you're right. After a short festival run, leaked onto the internet, somebody downloaded it and put it out, and it gained a lot of buzz on TikTok, which is kind of where the whole sort of popularity of it came about. You know, obviously people downloaded the leak and then talked about it on TikTok, and then it took off from there. And so IFC is putting out the movie, and what we have is like a super low budget movie, $15,000 budget, and very lo-fi, you know, kind of like, I assume what was shot on some kind of handheld camera for a lot of it. The audio is very primitive sounding and muffled, and
full of public domain cartoons.
Using public domain cartoons. And it is what could be best described as, and I you know, a self-described as well. I'm not, you know, just projecting onto this, as an experimental horror film. And experimental is a good word for it. It is a movie that has very little dialogue. I mean, I would say like less than 20 lines of dialogue probably that are actually spoken. But do you think that's fair?
I mean, it feels like a little more, but like you clearly are. I mean, you can't understand most of it.
Yeah.
And there are sometimes it's like, what am I trying to say?
Like subtitled.
Like subtitled. Yeah. Sorry.
And so very little dialogue. You don't see any characters' faces throughout the movie. It's all either like shadows or their backs or something like that.
You see like two faces, but they're very obscured.
Right.
Like it's not a clear look at really anything except, I guess, Legos essentially.
Yeah, and also there's no real plot to speak of. It's very much like all vibes. And you know, it's a lot of establishing shots. It's a lot of what feels like B-roll footage. You know, shots of like, you know, strange angles of the ceiling and strange angles of like, you know, Legos and toys and TVs, and it tries to ramp up and elevate the creepiness factor through implied horror. And I think the problem is that it's all implied, and I don't know that any of it is scary, because I don't think that there's enough meat on the bone. I mean, you know, I've heard, you know, people talk about seeing this movie and having it be creepy or like not being able to sleep or turning on all the lights in their house. And I was in a packed theater that got like no reaction for anything. Like,
that's weird. Yeah.
There was like a jump scare involving a toy that got a mild reaction, and everything else, I think it was just met with kind of silence and, you know, like no squirming. And when you get like 15 minutes into the movie and you realize, oh, they're not just establishing everything, this is just what it is.
Yeah.
You know, because you think at first it's sort of like a montage of like setting the tone for, you know, the sort of vibes. Because the idea is that you have like two small kids who in their house like can't find their dad.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the official plot summary is something like 2 children can't find their parents and all the doors and windows have disappeared in their home.
Right. Yeah, and then other
you
things.
Wouldn't know. I don't know that you would know that from watching the movie.
Well, I don't either, because I don't think that it appropriately illustrates that piece. I mean, you see certain objects disappear. Like there's a toilet that disappears at one point. I caught that.
Yeah, and there is a shot of like a door disappearing too. But like I'll get to it when I talked about it, but you never quite feel like what you're watching like is plot related other than just more atmosphere.
Well, and that's the thing about it, is that I've seen takes and reads on this movie that's like, it captures the anxiety of a childhood, or like having a child's nightmares or worst nightmares come true. And I think like the problem is I don't think the kids ever experience true horror as part of this. And I feel like they're like, they spend most of the movie trying to like figure things out as opposed to being creeped out by it. And I just don't know why I feel like they could have gone like 10 times harder on this to really amp up the scares, but it's almost as if that's not really the goal of the filmmaker, is not to like scare you or make these children react to the scares or react to it in any particular way. Like you get a little bit of it towards the end, but it's more like the kids exploring and trying to figure things out. Like the terror element, I feel is like, it's pretty light on that part of it. And yeah, I mean, I think for being like an hour and 40 minutes of like the same repetitive, implied establishing shots with like no real plot, no real forward movement on anything. You get little bits and pieces of stuff. Like there's like a 911 call that happens in there that like is like maybe like the most narratively forward thing that happens. But it wore on me. My patience wore a little bit thin with it. I didn't find it to be scary or creepy in any way. I didn't find it really to be unsettling. Like I said, it's all implied and it's all mood. And like, I don't think that there's anything of substance that is scary, because like the horror that a lot of people are talking about is sort of like the horror of the unknown, I guess. And like, again, like, yeah. And it talks about like being a child's worst nightmare of like not being able to leave their house or find their parents, but that's never really tapped into in any significant way on screen. And so for me, I just think it's boring and uninteresting. And I guess I appreciate the swing of trying to make a movie like this that's all vibes, but for me, there's just not nearly enough substance here to make it worthwhile. Yeah,
I kind of thought about when I was first watching this, I felt like this was like watching the Blair Witch Project on mute. Like if you were watching it in a waiting room, and then I kind of got the idea that it was like one of those Halloween tapes that has like spooky sounds, like just kind of vague spookiness. I agree with you on a lot of that. There is, there's a concerning lack of plot that I think you can get away with for a little while. I think this wears out its welcome too quickly on that, though. I think you could establish something and then coast on vibes, but you're coasting on vibes from the get-go. And, if it's a self-described experimental film, I 100% get that. This is clearly something that one person could have made. Like this could have been and again, I don't know what any of the history. I know there's like the film is dedicated to the assistant director who apparently passed away in the before this film was released in 2021. Like this is something like one person could have shot this and then added all the the dialogue and all the sound effects. If there's one thing I'll say that's positive about it, that's clearly positive, is the sound design is genuinely off-putting and strange. I think to its detriment, as you get into it, because you're 45 minutes into it, you don't know what the fuck is going on. Like if you hadn't read the synopsis and knew what was happening, you could be forgiven for just thinking this is like music video B-roll. And also, I think this is an hour and 40 minutes. That's way too long. Yeah. This thing should have been like 77 minutes tops. I don't know why I picked that number out of the blue. There's a lot of cool looking things to this. I think it overdoes a little bit. Like the film grain filter that's thrown on this thing is distracting for the again, as soon as you're like 15 minutes into this and you realize what you're in for, if you're looking for like a creepy vibe, I mean, this is it. This is all you're getting. This is all you're getting is the creepy vibe. The idea of this being a child's worst nightmare. I don't know if you remember, and I don't remember if it was on this show when we talked about the Poltergeist remake. When the fuck did that movie come out?
I don't know. I never saw that. So you've seen Poltergeist though, right? I have not.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a great horror movie. It's probably one of my favorite horror movies, and I'm not a big horror movie fan. Again, there's this kind of phenomenon that's not in existence anymore. The idea of the unknown through your television set. And by that, I mean static. Like static is something that is gone now. You don't have static because of the digital signals. But the idea that there's something in that static and that you could tune that static to the point where an image would come in, that's kind of the horror that Poltergeist plays on.
Right.
And I feel like this is going for that same vibe. Like I've seen some people talk about like, oh, this would be better. I think it was the RogerEbert.com review talked about how effective this movie would be if you stumbled across it in the middle of the night and had no idea what was going on.
Sure.
Probably. I feel like that's the vibe this is going for. That sort of like ephemeral nature of broadcasting. This is set in 1995. Filled with public domain cartoons. So that's already like off-putting weirdness, stuff from the 30s where, Felix the cat would commit suicide, weird shit like that. Vaguely racist or blatantly racist, these public domain cartoons. Just off-putting, I think is kind of the thing that I'm looking for. And the thing that this movie is going for. I don't think it's enough to just be off-putting, to just be kind of disassociative and dreamlike or nightmarish or whatever you want to call it. It's just not enough for me. I can see why people are digging it because it's something different. And let me ask you if you feel the same way about this. I think you and I have talked about this before. Do you know anybody that praises every comic book movie that comes out?
Sure.
I feel like that's a symptom of like people my age that grew up without this stuff. They grew up as comic book nerds, people that were outcast for it. I feel like they think that if not everything is successful, that it'll all go away. And I feel like horror people are like this about low budget movies like this.
Right.
Like if it's low budget and evocative and different in a certain way, it gets this effusive praise that I don't think it earns.
Yeah.
And I feel like this movie is... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, I think that there's stuff about like this, like, especially low budget horror, but also any like horror that is different. It's really hard to even say, but like different from mainstream, like, kind of toothless jump scare horror is like anything that has, some semblance of substance or something different about it gets praised pretty easily and also graded on a pretty large curve for being like competent horror as well. But again, like, I think the pacing of the movie is to its detriment because this would be one thing if this like squeezed the tension and held the tension of like what they're searching for and them going around the house or peeking around every corner or something like that. But it's all broken up by just like, again, these establishing shots of like vaguely creepy or weird things with like the occasional like thumping sound that you're hearing, and it just doesn't create that sense of dread or tension that I feel like a movie like this needs. Like if you're gonna try to coast on vibes, as you said, you've got to like hold the audience in like tightly and create some sense of tension, which I don't think it ever sustains for any period of time.
And I literally had not thought of this until you mentioned that. I didn't pick up ever that this was supposed to be from like a child's point of view. Mm-hmm. Because I don't feel like there's any one image that's clear enough to represent that. Like everything is dark, everything is grainy, everything is off-putting and at a strange angle. I'm just now picking up on that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a failing, I think, of the film, trying way too hard to just be about the vibes, mm-hmm. to not be about like effective storytelling. And maybe there's a version of this that works. Maybe there's a version where it's a little more, it's a tight, like I said, it's a tighter movie. It clocks in under 80 minutes right now at 100 minutes. Like that's too goddamn long. Yeah. Maybe there's a version of that. Right now, I mean, for being different and being something that's clearly low budget, but clearly has a visual style that it was trying to achieve. And, a lot of that's accomplished through that grain filter that's thrown on this. So, yeah. But there is some, genuinely weird angles and things that look interesting, but I don't think it has earned the kind of effusive praise that it's gotten. And mm-hmm. I'm not bashing anybody for liking it. I just don't feel like the movie stands up to it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
What's your grade for Skinamarink, Cody?
So I'm giving it a C-. For me, I just don't think it's successful in most areas. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a C because I think it looks cool at times, and it's at least interesting to look at for a significant amount of it. I mean, you're going to drift off. Like you're going to be like, unless you're seriously devoted to this and you're hooked into it, you're going to drift off and you're going to miss a little jump scare or two, like whatever. Yeah, but this is playing at currently at the Park North Alamo Drafthouse in San Antonio, Cody. Yeah. And it's going to expand.
Well, it should be playing in most draft houses across the country now. So if you're curious about it, I mean, it's different. That's one thing that you'll definitely get is you'll get something different. And if you're into like, again, just vibes, or if you're into experimental stuff or you want to see what, like you said, I mean, I think describing it as sort of like nightmarish, like a kind of like a waking nightmare kind of thing, it accomplishes at least visualizing that in a way. Whether it's successful as a story, I don't know, but it's definitely worth seeing to be part of the conversation because there's definitely a conversation around it. Right
oh yeah, now. I think it made $700,000 on like showings. It's not. I gotta say it's a little hard to find here in Austin. Like it's not as hard. It's not as easy to find as you might think it would be here in Austin. Mm-hmm. And it's playing like late showings only. So, but making $700K on a $1,500 or $15,000 budget is especially after it leaked online. Yeah. Cool. Let's move on to our last movie, Plane.
Yeah, sweetheart, it's me. I'm okay. Now, don't talk, just listen, because we might cut out, okay? Quick, grab something to write with.
Danny, not now, Aunt Carrie. Is that your dad? Yes. Danny, when are you, Brody? Okay, I got it.
We've gone down, all right? I want you to write what I say and get it to Trailblazer immediately.
Okay.
All right, we're on an island somewhere in the Jolo cluster in the Sulu Sea. Okay, now we have no radio. I don't know what island we're on.
I didn't see Plane, but I'm glad to see that Gerard Butler is still only mildly able to contain his Scottish accent.
He's supposed to be Scottish in this one, so.
Oh, he is? For real?
Yeah.
That sounded like he was playing an American again.
Nope, he's Scottish.
What was that movie that was actually really good or pretty good that he was in?
I think a lot of
Was it
people like.
Greenland?
Yeah. A lot of people like that one. A lot of people like Law Abiding Citizen.
Oh,
like
I never saw that one. Machine Gun Preacher, I hated. I did enjoy the first Has Fallen. Is it Olympus Has Fallen? Is the
Olympus
first one?
is the first one, yeah.
It's so fucking bonkers. Who's the actress?
It's Melissa Leo, right?
Yes,
Who
Melissa
does the Pledge of
Leo.
Allegiance.
Like she's being dragged by her hair through it with a terrorist. Fuck, man, that movie is so stupid and so fun. Way better than White House Down that came out like later that same year.
Channing Tatum
and Jamie Foxx. Anyway, but I didn't see Plane. Cody, you did. Why is it called Plane if they're on an island? But tell us about Plane.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to tell you.
It's a Gerard Butler film, and love him or hate him, you got to respect Gerard Butler for knowing his lane, and he very, very rarely ever like leaves his lane, which is sort of like ridiculous, over the top, like popcorn action movies. Like he doesn't even like attempt awards caliber stuff. Like this guy just sticks to the formula, and for a variety of results. You get cornball stuff that, like I'm sure like the Has Fallen series, you get really bad shit like Gamer, if you ever saw that movie.
I did not. God, I did not. I forgot about that movie.
Yeah, it's really bad. And then you get, like stuff that's pretty fine, like Greenland. A movie
I liked Greenland.
A movie that
personally.
that our former host Joss and I like to make fun of her because she cried multiple times in Greenland.
Oh, I forgot about.
I think she might have.
Did we
been
review that on the
time.
show?
I don't remember, but
she spent a lot of that time pregnant. So.
Right. So Plane, right? So it's called Plane because Gerard Butler plays a pilot in the movie, and basically what happens is there's sort of like mechanical failure on the flight, and they end up having to emergency land on an island. And then once they get on an island, they figure out that it's inhabited by like a militia, and they have to sort of find their way off of that thing, that predicament that they're in. It also co-stars Mike Coulter as a guy who was like a guy who's being transported, like a prisoner transport. And he plays like a murderer who's on that flight, who, as part of the landing, they have to like maybe free him in order to get some help. So,
like Con Air, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, it's so interesting because the movie, the first act of the movie, which is like the plane stuff, is actually pretty gripping and interesting. And then the final act of the movie, which is just like a dumb, violent shootout, is kind of fun and enjoyable. But this movie is like missing a second act. And I think it's the biggest part of the movie, and the biggest issue is that there's really no second act to speak of, because it's like plane gets there, plane lands, and then, I don't want to spoil anything, but the militia kind of, kidnaps the people on the plane, and then from there they have to like find their way out. And that middle section of like them getting kidnapped and him and Mike Coulter teaming together, it's like it's only maybe like 20 minutes, and it has like almost no substance. It's over really quickly. And also what the movie really suffers from is like no secondary plot lines and no secondary characters. Like there is a small plot line of like an airline trying to damage control this situation, but like every other character in this movie outside of like Gerard Butler and Mike Coulter is like paper thin. I mean, just like just the passengers that survive the landing just have like throwaway lines, and it's not even like they try to so how there's like if you think about Lost, there's like these background characters who made no impact at all.
What was the Apollo and they tried to do that? tried to tell it from their point of view.
Yeah,
what
so
were their names?
imagine
Paulo and
it was Nikki and Paulo.
Nikki and Paulo, yeah. And then everybody hated him and they threw him in a grave. Yeah.
Yeah, so imagine like you didn't get the Nikki and Paulo episode and you just had them in the background of stuff or just introduced vaguely. That's what all the characters in Plane are like, where there's nothing to them. Like they like to like have snappy dialogue or like a line of snappy dialogue or get angry at the situation. And then that's about all they offer. There's a side plot with like Gerard Butler and a daughter that he has that goes nowhere. The Mike Coulter character ends in like a shrug. That arc ends in like a shrug. So, you know, it's like almost competent. Like if there was like any effort put into this second act, this would be a perfectly serviceable, mindless action thriller movie. And I'm sure that this movie will have a long life on TNT, you know, at some point. But for me, there's like it feels like this movie has like the middle chunk missing. And I think, it's unfortunate because there is some it's a rated R movie, which I did not know going into it. I thought it was a PG-13 movie. And so when it leans into the R and it's like kind of like bloody and violent and there's like a lot of, you know, headshot gunfire and cursing and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, this is fun. But it just kind of like it all feels empty without some kind of secondary thing going on, like an interesting side character or an interesting side plot, or like I said, there needs to be way more tension and way more you know, substance in that middle chunk of it.
So I'm looking up. We did review Greenland on the show back when we talked about Ma Rainey's. What is it? Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Yeah, yeah. Jocelyn was on that show, so I forgot that she cried about it. That's funny. We did the last. I forgot we reviewed Cop Shop, which was a Gerard Butler movie too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah. Man, this guy, like you're right. He has a lane and he fucking stays in it. Like I think probably the biggest like swing from him that's different is How to Train Your Dragon movies, where he's just a voice actor.
Yeah, and like he was in Coriolanus, the Shakespeare adaptation with Ray Fiennes. That might be like.
Yeah, I mean,
but
yeah, that, and then if you want to count something like Gods of Egypt was a bit more of a what do we call it, like a big budget action, not like this is probably a low budget action movie, I assume, or medium budget, but like Gods of Egypt, which was god awful, but
yeah, that movie's very bad and problematic.
Wasn't like John Turturro playing Ramses or something like that?
Yeah, and there was someone else who was, I think it was Ben Mendelsohn, I believe, had like some question, or maybe that's another one. There was one where Ben Mendelsohn has some like questionable.
Oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm thinking of the one. Wasn't there one that was it was a Ridley Scott movie? That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Exodus, Gods and Kings.
Okay.
That's Turturro, and that's Ben Mendelsohn too.
Okay. Oh man, these shitty movies getting confused. That was the one that was like if the Bible were literal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this one had, okay, so Gods of Egypt had Jeffrey Rush as Ra, the Egyptian god of the sun.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Anyway, Chadwick Boseman was in that movie too. That was an Alex Proyas movie. Wow. Anyway, what's your grade for Plane, Cody?
I give it a C. I mean, I think again, I was at a C plus, like leaving the theater, and like, okay, that was fine. And then like when I scrutinized it a little bit more and thought about it and thought about like that middle act and thought about the lack of the other characters, it really kind of brought it down a little bit for me. So I gave it a C.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Cody, next week, is that when Sundance starts for you?
So it starts at during the weekend. So so I'll be able to cover a little bit. Missing is the movie that comes out next week, and I was a big fan of Searching. I don't know how you felt about it.
Did I see Searching? I don't think
John Cho, like all takes place on a computer screen.
Man, I don't remember.
It's really good.
I haven't. If it's not covered on the podcast, I don't know if I saw it.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, we did. I don't know, man. I don't know that I ever did see it.
Okay.
I'm surprised it's a sequel. I had no idea.
Well, it's not really a sequel as much. It's like a standalone movie that is sort of like in the same. I mean,
This is the Searching Cinematic Universe. You mean?
Yeah, basically. As far as I can tell, at least. But Searching was a movie that, again, it's I forget what they call the genre. It has a name, but it's this Screen Life is what it's called.
Oh, like Unfriended and
yeah. It's
there was
movies
another
that
one too.
take place entirely on a computer screen or a smartphone. And Searching was probably the best example of that. Really well done and a really good movie. And this is sort of like a follow-up to that comes out next week. So
there was a pandemic one that we liked too, and I can't remember what the hell that one was called either.
Are you talking about Host?
Was that was it? Yeah, Host.
The horror movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, all this. Either my memory is terrible or I've seen too many movies. Maybe it's both, but all this shit just mushes together now. Anyway, so yeah, there's missing anything else?
No, I just wanted to get one more show in before I do jump into Sundance, which will be, I think, on like Saturday of next weekend.
You're not going to Park City, unfortunately, though.
I'm not. I'm doing it virtually again because I don't want to spend $500 or $600 a night on lodging. But I will be covering it online. I've got a full schedule set. I'm 3 screeners deep into watching stuff, so it's always a great privilege to be able to cover that festival.
I feel like the last couple of years, it's revealed some of your top movies of the year pretty early.
It has, and it's had staying power. I mean, Coda was the first Sundance movie to ever win Best Picture a couple of years ago, and then last year movies like Living that was on my top 10 was a Sundance movie. And like something like Marcel was a South by movie. So like, these early of the year festivals do have a lot of staying power to them. So yeah, I'm excited about it. There's, some interesting stuff that I'm sure I'll talk about on the show that I'm interested to see, but yeah, it's a good time. And like I said, Sundance was always like a dream to cover. And so to be on my 3rd year of even virtually covering those movies is pretty cool.
What about Slam Dance?
Have not done Slam Dance.
All right, if you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. Find us on Twitter at CineSnob, Facebook CineSnobNet, youtube.com/CineSnob. Cody, ramble.
Yeah, I've been off. I think it's been going. I haven't been able to join recently, but
too busy playing Frogger, eh?
Yeah, too busy playing. What did you say the name of the naked lady one was?
Oh, Painted Lady.
Painted Lady.
I'm gonna look that up. I mean, later after the show. No, yeah, Painted Lady game. I think it was called Painted Lady. Yeah, Painted Lady Arcade. Yeah, I'd send you a link, but that's
in
Randy.
SFW.
Yeah. Anything else before we go?
No, I don't think so. It's good to be back and doing stuff and.
A show that's under 2 hours.
Yeah, I you know what? I enjoyed that epic show though. It reminded me of some of the stuff we used to do back in the day, where we were covering like 4 movies and would have marathon sessions and shit like that.
There was nothing like doing them in person marathon sessions.
Mm-hmm.
But them's the
in-person podcasting.
Who does that anymore? All right, on that note, I am Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit CineSnob.net. See you next week.